All right, fabulous. Well, everybody, welcome to Beers with Engineers session 24. So very excited. We officially celebrated the 2-year birthday on St. Patty's Day earlier this year. But this is kind of like the 2-year of sessions. Um, really, really nice to be here with all of you. I tell everybody this is kind of like hanging out with my friends at work every month, you know? Um, so it's really, really good to be here. Thanks for joining us today. We're really excited about what we have to talk about today. Um, you want to kick us off to the next slide, Will, and we'll talk through process. And so, of course, we always have to start off with the safe harbor notice. Um, we always talk about things in here that potentially may not be fully developed and may not come to fruition exactly as the way we talk about it because it might not be GA yet. So everything that you hear here, don't make any buying decisions on it. And it's really purely just about, how do we enable you guys? So moving on to kind of the agenda, we always keep it very casual and informal here. And we'll kind of dig through these as we go. Why are we here? Who we are? We'll hand it over to Matt Morris with RapDev for a tech deep dive that I'm very excited about today. And then, as always, we'll wrap it up with a Q&A. So
And
let's talk.
certainly, anybody who has questions all throughout, feel free to come off mute if you have something to contribute or to ask.
Yep, 100%. It's always casual and informal here. And so why did we do this, right? We built this because we really felt like there's not enough community communication around the kind of intersection of ServiceNow and cloud native functionality and capabilities. So to really build a community around what are the capabilities and what are things doing, talk through on a very deep technical level how things are operating, how things are working, and then to enable you guys to also have a community to talk through with each other. So we're really, really happy that so many people have joined us on this journey.
Yeah.
So who we are. I am Mike Gallagher. I'm the manager of the enterprise applications team at DRW, a principal trading firm based out of Chicago. I am a tech head from way back, and I love pretty much anything nerdy. I love to do specifically IT operations management and Kubernetes are kind of my two favorite things to play with on a regular basis. I know it seems crazy. Um, I am a big on kind of solving business problems, right, intelligently and efficiently with tech. I am a jujitsu nut job. I love it dearly, and I play board games with my family on a very regular basis. Lots and lots of fun. And actually, I think I'm going to train some jujitsu while I'm out in Vegas for Knowledge this year. So
Nice.
anybody else who's interested, hit me up. I am not going to drink a beer today again because of the jujitsu thing. So sticking to water today. Will, over to you.
Thanks, Mike. Hey, everybody. Will Hallam, ITOM architect here at ServiceNow. Been working in various parts of IT for the better part of 3 decades. Currently kind of focusing on IT operations management, a lot of automation stuff, specifically around cloud native technologies. Just love to find repetitive tasks and automate them so that nobody has to worry about doing them by hand ever again. My spare time, I like hanging with my family, play some pickup hockey and video games. Today, I will be enjoying a single order hazy IPA from Community Beerworks. Before we get into our main program, just want to give a quick shout out. It's something that we did last year and folks were asking about it the first couple sessions. This year, we are going to have a live Beers with Engineers session. Thanks in no small part to our friends at RapDev. So here's the information on the slide. Here's a handy QR code, which will take you to the sign up page. space is limited. So if you are going to be at Knowledge, please, don't delay if your schedule can accommodate. Really excited to be doing another live event with actual live beverages, and yeah, it's gonna be pretty cool.
Super excited. And definitely share, right? If you have other folks on your team that are going to be out in Vegas who maybe don't make it in for these webinars, definitely let them know so that they can come join us.
Yeah, 100%. I'm told the room accommodates 150 people, so we've got, we've definitely got some space for some folks. So spread the word if there are folks with similar interests that are going to be at Knowledge. So with that, we're going to hand it over to our esteemed guest speaker, Matt Morris from RapDev. Matt, wanted to do a quick intro, and then the floor is yours.
Appreciate it. Yeah. Happy to be here. I used to work with both Will and Mike when I was at ServiceNow. And excited to talk to you guys today about just kind of tying together a lot of different parts of the platform that we don't tend to see really good end-to-end demos sometimes of these things. And so since we're having this conversation a lot at RapDev with our customers and our prospective customers that we're talking to, that was something that I've shown to some people at ServiceNow. A lot of excitement in different kind of audiences because, like I said, I think it is kind of a unique demo in that sense, and really just helps show what's possible when you pull together a lot of different pieces of the platform. Um, it is a live system we're going to be demoing today, so I'll show you a little bit about that as we go. Ties in a lot of different pieces, including OpenTelemetry, DevOps change velocity for change registration from CI/CD pipelines. It ties in a solution that we have, which is patented and it's on the store. It's called CSDM-as-Code. It also ties into event management, major incident management, some ChatOps stuff, and some automated remediation. So we'll show kind of that end-to-end story. Just quickly, who RapDev is. I'm not going to bore you guys with slides, but we are a ServiceNow Elite partner. We have a lot of different customers in all different industries that we work with. And we have quite a few custom plugins and integrations that are on the store. Our specialty is especially like in the ops space. A lot of us came from like cloud ops, cloud engineering, kind of different types of ops roles like that. SRE. Some of us were engineers before this, and so that's the specialty that we bring to our customers, and really making ServiceNow sing as part of that whole ecosystem is what our specialty is. We've done a lot of work with a lot of different customers. You can see some of the numbers here as far as the different types of situations that we're in. We do a lot of Kubernetes discovery. I know Kubernetes is close to Mike's heart. We do a lot of automation, which seems to be close to Will's heart based on his intro. And these are the things that we work on every day with our customers. You can see some of our customers here. So we've got a lot of customers we've worked with, some cool success stories that we'll be talking about. We have several sessions at Knowledge, and we'll be with you guys at Beers with Engineers at Knowledge as well. So looking forward to it. Part of the way that we're successful is we just bring a fresh approach to deployments. We don't do like these big bang deployments that take 6 months and then you finally have something. We deliver value along the way. So that's the little spiel about who RapDev is. Today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a working system. It's a website. It sells astronomy gear, and it's built on OpenTelemetry. So we'll talk a little bit about OpenTelemetry as we go. I'm going to make a commit and break something. And then we're going to show how does that change get registered? How does the deployment then finish once the change is approved by DevOps policies? We're going to show how do we register services in a declarative way. And as all of that's happening and we're understanding the connections between our CI/CD toolchain and ServiceNow, we're also showing how do we interact with ServiceNow without even being in ServiceNow. Like engineers tend to not love to hang out in ServiceNow, the ServiceNow UI all the time. They want to be able to meet it. We want to meet them in the tools they're comfortable with. So we do that. Once this gets into prod, it's going to get discovered by a few different tools, including ServiceNow Cloud Observability, which is previously known as Lightstep. We'll have generative AI tied in along the way to help with summaries and troubleshooting and things like that, and validations of groupings and things that I'll show you. We're going to work on that incident through Teams. Since it's a major incident, we have kind of some ChatOps kind of stuff we can do. And then as we get through and we're figuring out what the problem is, we'll actually do automated remediation against that issue, and then show how does this all tie back to DORA metrics and things like that. So what's the value of this whole system in terms of bringing it all together into one place? If there are any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat as we go, and I'll try to keep an eye on that. Will and Mike might be able to jump on some of those as well. But this is the overview of what we're going to run through. I think it helps ground us a little sometimes to look at a slide, since there's several things we're going to move through. And what I'm going to do now is show you the website and how I'm going to break it. And then I'll do the commit to break it. The pipeline takes like 3 minutes to run. So we'll talk through a couple of other things while it's running. This is the website. It's essentially an e-commerce website. It has kind of this front page with products that are popular right now. We have a bunch of traffic constantly generating against this website. And so that is what the customers are doing, is they're coming in, they look at a product, they might add it to the cart, and then they can go through and like fill out the stuff and submit it. And that goes through shipping, payment, tracking, fraud detection, everything like that. When we're on a product page, you might have noticed, if I scroll down a little bit, there's actually this section 2 called You May Also Like, that has products that I might be interested in based on the fact that I'm looking at this one. This is a heavily microserviced kind of architecture that we're looking at here. I think there's 13-ish services and probably 10-ish languages. The microservice that delivers this particular little widget with the You May Also Like and then the products is pulling from the product catalog, but it's actually called the recommendation service, and it's written in Python. So that's what we're actually going to break right now. That's probably enough said about the website. I don't want to spend too much time on that. I want to get into the commit so that we can see how that flows down once we break something. So I'm just going to edit this right in GitHub, right in the browser for simplicity's sake and to make it easier to share. I have basically a section in here that if I uncomment this, it's going to break this service. And I'm not going to explain anything about why I'm doing this or what I'm doing exactly when I commit this. I'm just going to put, the only thing I'm going to add to the commit message besides what GitHub auto-generated for me is I'm going to put a reference to an ADO story that I'm working on right now. And that story itself is actually super vague too, but it will show how we can connect in ServiceNow, how this gets connected to the change to show the related story. So that's one little nugget about how DevOps works, the DevOps plugin in ServiceNow. But I'm not going to explain anything about what I'm doing or why I'm doing it. And the reason for that is we're taking all of that work and all of that reliance off of human data as much as possible in this kind of an implementation. And we're using tie-ins to generative AI to validate certain things and to figure out what's been changed and so on. So I'll go ahead and commit that change. While it's running, I think I saw there was at least one question that popped up. Nope, it's just saying to register for beers at Knowledge. Definitely do that. I heard that there's going to be unlimited beer for free. Is that what's? No, I'm just kidding. But definitely register for that.
Something like
so that something like that. So that pipeline's running. While that's running, I want to highlight a couple more quick things about how this works under the covers, because any second we're going to get the ping that says like, hey, some stuff's broken, and then we'll jump into figuring out what's broken and how to fix it. While that's happening, I want to show you a little bit about CSDM-as-Code. Again, this is a patented plugin that we have on the ServiceNow store. It was designed by actually employee number 1 at RapDev. And so essentially what this does is it allows us to gather really important information that can often be hard to get about the services that we're building from, number 1, from the people who are the best positioned to provide information, and 2, in a tool or in tools that they're already comfortable using without trying to teach them some other tool. And what I mean by that is a lot of times to get this kind of information about what service are you building, who owns it, how do we know what's, the tags are and things like that. These kind of answers we would normally have to get from somebody in the platform team that works on ServiceNow, trying to go out and find the people who work on the service, ask them questions and write it down, and either bring that back to ServiceNow or tell those engineers to, hey, come and figure out how to use like a new UI in ServiceNow, where you have to try to figure out how to register this whole thing. In our experience with teams that are moving fast and honestly breaking stuff, right, in healthy ways, is that they don't want to get out of this tool. They don't want to get out of their flow. And so what we're looking at is how can we make that friction minimal and still get what we need to do to be able to drive some of the outcomes we care about here, which is keeping services running, keeping our customers happy, and making sure that, in the process, the friction and the cost is low on our organization, because we're not paying engineers to provide service details into ServiceNow. We're paying them to do the development work, right? So that's all we do here. We provide a schema. The schema is tailorable. We're going to talk more about this at Knowledge. So I'm not really going to spend a ton of time on it today, but this schema can be tailored in the implementation. And you even have like mapping you can set up and stuff like that. But all we're doing here is we're just defining, we need some attributes about the services that are being built in a given repo. We drop this in. The developers that are actually working on that repo fill it out. They give names about like the general kind of business application that this supports. Who owns that? Who should the tech owner be? If something breaks or if a change is logged against that, who should that be routed to? What group? And then we talk about the actual instantiated like microservice itself, which here we're looking at the example of the accounting service. We have one as well for the recommendation service. And so we can see here, it's like basically the same, just different names for the services and different tag values. So we're mentioning this is the service, this is who it's owned by, this is who should deal with it if it breaks. These are normally kind of hard details to track down. So the fact that we can get this really easily here in a place that's comfy and easy for developers to fill out, it's a game changer in that sense. And that's definitely what we found as we've deployed this for our customers too.
So Matt,
Yeah,
just to make sure I understand this right. So if the team that maintains this app decides, oh, we want the owner, like the tech owner for this to change, all they have to do is
yep,
just change this code, put a PR in, and
yep.
then
It'll
put
automatically
it
get
through
picked up.
their
That's
same
exactly right.
release process. And then once that PR gets merged, it'll update the CMDB. Is that?
Yep. Yep. All we're
That's
doing
awesome.
is we can do this completely separate from DevOps. In this case, it is linked up with DevOps, but it's
Mhm.
basically just a webhook that's set up when a pipeline is run. When that pipeline is run, we look at the files that were involved in the pipeline run. And if they match the naming convention that we're using here, which in this case, the default is now.yaml as the end of the file, we go reach back out to the get tool and we say, what are the contents of this file? We bring that back. We parse that into ServiceNow, right?
Nice.
Into it's CSDM compliant. It matches all the recommendations as far as where data should go so that the magic happens, right? And so that's what we're doing. And actually for this layer here, this object, the microservice, we're actually building out the tags for it as a tag-based service. And so that automatically creates a tag-based service in ServiceNow. And I'll show you in a minute, but as resources come in from whatever sources, whether it's Cloud Discovery or like Service Graph connectors, or maybe like VMware Discovery or whatever, and they have those tags, they will get associated automatically to the services that were created through here.
So
So
Will,
I'll
Matt,
pause there and see if there's any questions so far.
yeah, so I wasn't sure if that's okay to ask a question. Can you hear me
Sure.
okay?
Yeah.
So you mentioned that taking care of a new value for that attribute in CMDB on our side. What's going to happen on the other side? Is there no Kubernetes or whatever? The other values going to stay there, the old ones, or do we have ability to update them?
Are you saying in ServiceNow, will this affect any objects from other CI classes?
No. My concern, if we updating those values in CMDB only, and the source system has the original values, the next time when we're going to source.
Oh, if somebody goes into the table in ServiceNow and modifies them, and then
Mhm.
somebody, so like dueling
Yeah.
updates. I would
Yeah,
imagine you wouldn't want to do that, right? Because it would,
we sometimes set like flags on these. So for some customers that we've worked with, we've set flags on these too, where you can make them like read only. So that's an option. Or you can do some flag on them that notes they're from this source. But it's also not that huge of a deal. Like if someone were to come in and change one of the attributes, this is something that whenever it's updated again, it'll overwrite those changes.
Mhm.
And in an implementation, there's usually those are the kind of questions you have to answer about, like how do we resolve conflicts? In this case, these are largely services that you wouldn't be using any automated discovery for, so it would have to be a person. And so that comes down to what is the person process for that.
Yeah, this is a data governance question for sure. There's also one other question that popped up in the Q&A. Does CSDM-as-Code use the CMDB CI SDLC component class as part of the build domain in CSDM?
Yes. The main classes that this touches in terms of how we built it out of the box for the store are business applications, SDLC components, and tag-based application services. And like I said, it is extensible. Definitely plug for Beers with Engineers at Knowledge, because my coworker and the guy who his name is the first name on the patent, he's gonna be doing a session about how to make this extensible, how to use it for other types of use cases and stuff like that, because it is completely extensible in that sense. You can map to other classes, you can bring in other attributes, you can do transforms and lookups and all that kind of stuff.
Matt, is it something we can establish the CMDB CI relationships as well from this file to other applications?
Yes, this does the relationships among the objects that we list here, and it also sets up a tag-based application service, which tag-based application services do create literal relationships between the parent and the children based on the tags. Good questions, guys. Please keep those coming.
Mhm.
So this is the outcome, right? We get to a place where we have like all of our declared services that came out of the YAML files. And in this case, we're actually running, there's a plugin called the OpenTelemetry Service Graph Connector. And we're actually connecting that to that here. So we can see, like, if we were to open one of our services that we know has a pod all the time, like our payment service, the payment service here, we can see, like, if we look at its service map, we're not doing any Kubernetes discovery in this environment. So we're not doing it either through like another service graph connector or through Kubernetes discovery itself. This pod was actually created by the OpenTelemetry service graph connector, which basically takes trace data and converts that into objects based on different kind of approaches for looking at like Kubernetes attributes and things like that, to be able to create the different Kubernetes objects. And then here, because they have those tags from Kubernetes, they're actually mapping up automatically to my tag-based application service that's created for the payment service. So this is where we get down to a service map. Where this is helpful is I may get an alert from a tool, from a monitoring tool that says, hey, there's some problem with this pod. You need to go check that out. And then that will map up and say, oh, well, that affects the payment service and also affects the top level astronomy shop that we're dealing with. So if I'm an engineer, right, a couple of quick things that I would probably, after I did that deploy, I wouldn't have been looking at all that other stuff. I probably would have just come over here and said, hey, what's going on in Teams? What's the latest chatter? Who's going to be going to Beers with Engineers and Knowledge? And I'm checking all that stuff out. I come over here, I see, hey, my change was created automatically, it looks like, for the deploy that I did. I can see it's my hotel recommendation service pipeline. And I can see it was automatically set to approved. So honestly, from my perspective, I'm good. I'm not really worried about anything else. I know that change was deployed, but had I been here a little sooner, I might have seen it pop up. We do see there's a new channel that showed up here. And this new channel is telling me that there is an alert that's come against, or an incident that's come against my team, because it's creating a channel here and it's automatically assigning me as one of the people to respond to it. So based on the fact of all the setup that's gone before and everything like that, I know that it must be bringing me into it because it's about a service that I deal with. I can see it is my hotel demo kind of group of services, and it's telling me there's a problem with the front end service, which is the service that does a lot of the UI and stuff like that. And so I'm going to go ahead and start responding to this. And I have options here where I can actually use like ChatOps kind of commands. And I can just say, let me add a work note. And this is something we've deployed for several customers too. There are some out of the box capabilities for this with ServiceNow you can build out. And we have some specialized kind of things that we deploy for customers usually too. I'll say, hey, I'll take this one. And that'll drop a work note on the the incident in question here. And we'll go look at that incident in a second. Before we go there, I might also want to know a little bit about the history of this CI. And so I can run a command, we call it get CI 30. It basically tells me about the last 30-day history of this particular CI. Looks like it's mostly just had changes against it. So this is pushing me in the direction of, it's probably the deploy that I did. I'm going to want to figure out how to undo that as fast as possible. The last thing I can do here is, since we know there's probably a code fix that needs to go in, just off the top, I'm going to go ahead and add a problem to research this further while I'm doing the best I can to stop the bleeding with the incident. So that problem task and the problem itself will be out there to make sure that this issue gets resolved permanently. So let's hop in and look at what does this look like on the ServiceNow side for this incident that I got. I'll pause here and see if there's any other questions so far. Cool.
Yep,
So we can
none on the Q&A.
see. Awesome. So we'll see here where the TeamSpot came in, gave us a note. We actually got a little bit more detail in here too. So this is our first example where we're looking at an example of a Gen AI kind of tie-in. And what we're doing here is we're pushing out a lot of content. This is a ServiceNow feature called Alert Assist, where basically you push out a bunch of content about the alerts and you get back kind of a summary of what's going on. And we've extended that a little bit and said, hey, also give me ideas about what are the top 3 most likely causes for this and how I might go about starting to resolve each one. Because of the level of detail that we're able to push out about the logging alerts that we've gotten here, any other alerts that came in, it's telling us the first most likely thing is that there's an infinite loop that's been introduced. And so it says, hey, go remove that. It's a good tip. And at this point, we might want to dig further into like, where's this coming from? What was the source of this incident? It tells us over here the origin was a group of alerts. And so we can open that group of alerts to learn more about what's happening here. So we see immediately there's 6 alerts in this group. The most recent kind of symptom is that our front end is not responding sometimes. That's not good. It's probably because it's getting overloaded from things retrying those services and stuff like that. We can see the main affected services are the front end and that recommendation service. And then the top level service that's impacted is our astronomy shop that we have for production. So if we start to dig into this, right, if we look at our details, we get a similar kind of summary of what's been happening so far. We can see our incident that was created and everything like that. But I want to look at the related records to understand more about the underlying causes that are happening here. So first of all, I can see the alerts in the group. I have several, and I'm going to look through them a little bit, but I can see, like if I sort these by generation time, I can see the first one that happened was actually this log error that we see from Log Analytics. This is a product that ServiceNow calls HLA. If you're not too familiar with it, it basically ingests all your log data and looks for anomalies. So it found that anomaly first before any of these other tools started to notice that something was wrong. And it said, hey, there's this stuck in loop error that's getting repeated. Then
And
Zabbix started to notice some latency. And
I want
some
to jump
other
in there
stuff.
really quick. Sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt, but the
Okay.
log analytics functionality is actually something we'll also be deep diving on that knowledge. So come to Beers Live at Knowledge and learn more about that as well.
Yeah, totally.
Should have made it a drinking game. You got to take a drink every time somebody plugs the Beers Live.
I'm doing every time somebody asks the question. So if you guys want to make this more fun, ask more questions.
All right, we'll do our
That's
best.
right.
Well, since you asked, the Gen AI piece that you just showed, is that, it sounds like that's like a value add that you put on there, right? You're making a call out to what,
Yeah.
like ChatGPT or something?
Yeah, we have a couple of different LLMs that we use. We do use some OpenAI stuff. I use some Anthropic stuff, and I've just started to mess around more with Llama 3. So there's some pretty cool options for those. We've done several different versions of that for our customers in terms of solutions that they can pick from.
Yep.
It could be, you're dealing with just public GPT. Depends on what you're pushing out and how comfortable you are with it going out to the public model. Of course, you
Right.
can always tell the model not to train on it.
Yeah.
And then you can do like a private model would be an option as well. Or you can use like the Now LLM, right, is another option. So there's several options depending on your use case. which one you pick is going to kind of depend on those factors. There's also like cost factors involved and all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
So that's how we look at it. Yeah, pretty much everything I'm going to show with Gen AI is things that are solutions that we're building, but we're using these building blocks that ServiceNow offers as well.
Yep.
And that's part of what's cool about ServiceNow, as always, right? Is you can extend it.
We are a big Lego set.
Absolutely. So we can see that log analytics alert. We can see a couple of other alerts that came in from ServiceNow Cloud Observability. Selenium started to notice some synthetic tests failing. And then Cloud Observability dropped in one more because it was a little bit different version of the error rate. So part of the thing that we can do, part of the power of event management is bringing all these alerts together. And then part of it is helping with root cause analysis, right? So just a couple of quick things while we're here. If we were to open up one of these alerts, like this log analytics alert, we do have a little button that I added here too, where you can open these logs, the specific logs that cause this in ServiceNow Cloud Observability and say, hey, what's going on with these logs? And that allows me to really see like there was nothing happening at all. And then all of a sudden I have a deluge of these logs that match this kind of phrase that HLA found. And so this is just, again, it gets back to how do we pull all this together? I'm going to show a couple more things like that. So we've got our latency for a recommendation service. Something that can be kind of hard to catch sometimes in observability can be like things that are broken, but they're not like blatantly broken. And so what we're doing here is we're actually using, looks like there was one really, really bad one. It's kind of compressing let's look at a lesser time frame. There's one really awful one in there. If we zoom out, let's do 30 minutes, and maybe that'll give us a nice view. If we zoom out a little, we can see we were doing fine. And then everything fell off a cliff, and now we have this super low latency. This is a good practice as far as monitoring to look for, to have some policies in place that look for like just weird outcome signals, kind of output signals like latency, both too high and too low. Because too low means something totally different, right? It means it returned pretty much immediately, which means it probably didn't do its job. And that's kind of what we're dealing with here. And because we have some of these other alerts, we can actually suss that out even further than just to say that like it's obviously not working. But it's not broken in that sense. Like Kubernetes thinks it's working by all accounts. If you looked at it in Kubernetes thinks it's working fine. And in many other cases, it would look like it's working fine, right? But only when we have those kind of like catch-all kind of things that help us catch unknown unknowns type of situation. I want to look too at the probable root causes, and we have another tie-in here. So 2 generative AI tie-ins on this piece. We have probable root causes that are coming in here, and we can see like, hey, what were our probable root causes? We're actually doing Gen AI validation on them to see which ones are probably the most likely to be causes that are connecting to the issue that I'm dealing with. And I can also see of those, like the most recent change is probably the one that I want to look at. And on that change, this is the one that was created by DevOps. I know that because it's telling me it's automated. We have one more thing here. So under related records, let me just highlight this real quick. We do get in the change request itself, we get a bunch of related records that get attached. One of the things that gets attached in a DevOps change is also the commit details. And with that, what we do is we reach out, push those the actual code changes that were done to an LLM again and say, explain to me what this did before and what it does now. And that's how we get this bottom section here. Because you remember in my commit, I didn't explain why did I do this? What was the point? What am I actually changing? And so this is where the code changes are actually getting highlighted here. You can see where it's saying there was a while loop and a logger message that were commented out, but then the infinite loop has been activated, parentheses uncommented. And it points out that these changes will keep the function in a constant state of attempting to retrieve the product catalogs. And it's going to be logging that error message continuously, which is exactly right. And this to me is like one of the powerful applications of generative AI is things like this, as opposed to like in this case, we're not putting any decisions in its hands. We're not putting any kind of super sensitive information out there. We're basically just using this as a way to inform us better about what's happening. Any questions on any of that part?
So the payload that you're sending it, are you creating the diff and sending it, or are you sending it kind of the 2 generations of the file and telling it to just compare them?
Yeah, it's a good question. Because and you could do either one, and in some cases, I think sending the whole thing would be super useful. But there would be a little bit more architecture to that because DevOps change velocity doesn't store the code files themselves; it just stores the diff. So
Okay.
I'm just going and getting the related diff by walking out and finding the right record, and then
Yep.
bringing the diff back and putting that into a longer prompt that gives a bunch of instructions, and then getting that explanation back and putting in the change.
So the diff actually gets generated by change velocity.
Yeah, because
Nice.
it pulls it from GitHub or whatever tool you're using for
Yep.
code.
And I
Sweet.
think that answers Mahesh's question in the Q&A as well, around whether or
Okay.
not this uses DevOps velocity. So
It does.
all that
That's how
good.
this change was registered. Yep. There's a step in our pipeline that actually does the change registration. Like if we look at the actions, we can see the one that just ran, and we can see kind of the steps that it's going through. So in the build process, it's doing a setup job, and then in the deploy, it's doing the change as one of the first steps. And then it waits on that approval before it proceeds. And the approval in this case, there's a policy that we can see in the change itself. We scroll down a little, it passed all these checks. So like we have some tests that are done automatically, amount of code changes, we have a policy there. This is policy is code stuff. Commits without stories, we didn't have any because I did attach the story. No problem tasks, no incidents, no P1s. This is DPR. If you guys haven't heard of DPR, it's like a newer product that ServiceNow recently launched. And so we're actually doing a release cadence here too, where you can
Nice.
reference a release and check if there are any release tasks that are pending. In this case, we didn't relate it to release, there were none. But if we did, it would check that release to see if there were any. So yeah, so all of that leads us back to a place where we say, yeah, this is obviously being caused. We're over-explaining. We've spent a while explaining this. If I was looking at this as an engineer, I would have looked at this in a couple of minutes and been like, yeah, it's obviously caused by the deploy. So I'm just going to go right in and start rolling this back, right? That's the first thing I need to do. Now, because ServiceNow offers this playbook functionality, we could build a flow like this one that we're about to use called rollback Kubernetes deployment, which basically takes this issue and based on filters and rules and stuff like that, it maps up the most likely actions that I might want to use to solve this problem. And then I can choose to let these fire automatically. So it could have tried to do this automatically. In this case, I've left it up to an engineer to make the decision. And I'm actually just going to click that button and do the rollback. And what this is doing is reaching out to the cluster, which is in Google Cloud, the GKE, and it says, hey, this deployment, the recommendation service, you need to go back to the last version. And so it does that, it executes that successfully. And we would have seen before, we didn't really look at it too much so far, but we would have seen before, like our you may also like section had completely gone away. I forgot to show that little part, but it was gone. And now that it's restarted, the service is actually back. This is where the value of it comes in because I have this ability to do all of these kind of pieces without ever having to come around and figure out like, hey, what are all the steps that I need to go through? How many different tools do I have to jump around? How many different pieces of context do I have to manually kind of pull together? And so at that point, I know that I've resolved this issue. The service looks like it's working fine again. And I can then go in and I can actually do the incident resolution here too. And so this will bring me over to a chat window. So send me a quick message in chat. And it'll say, hey, you need to fill out some more details about what you're doing, to resolve this incident, what the steps are. I think Teams might actually just frozen. Let's see. Using Teams in the browser is not the best experience. It just makes it easier for demos.
True.
Yeah, there we go. So we say workaround provided. I'm going to say here, P task, code fix, and manually rolled back to restore service. We'll submit that. As we submit that, we can see on the ServiceNow side, like here's our alert and our incident. The alert group got pulled together by all those CI relationships that we helped with. it automatically resolves the incident, sets the resolution code. And as a result of that relationship, it actually closes my entire group of alerts and marks all of this as cleaned up, so that on pages like the one we have here, where we can see all of our services, my astronomy shop would have been a different color before. So there's a few different UIs. We tend to do a lot of work out of like ChatOps, but there is also this piece where we have like our astronomy shop, and we can see it's back to green now. So when we have alerts that are affecting, this shows up as, you know, blue or yellow or orange or red, depending on how bad it is. So it would have been red since we did have some critical alerts. And now we get back to a place where we have it green. So all this leads us to a place where it becomes much easier to manage kind of the end-to-end story, but it also helps us to provide visibility that previously was impossible. And you think about the amount of questions that usually happen in a scenario like this, where a customer calls a VP or something, and that person picks up the phone, and the customer's like, "Hey, your recommendation service on the website seems like it's not working at all. Like, what's up with that?" And then that person has to go talk to somebody else, who has to go talk to somebody else who's like, "Oh yeah, actually there is a problem going on right now. We're working on it. Here's the latest deal with that, and here's when it's going to be fixed." And then they're like rolling that back up. It just becomes a really painful game of telephone, and everyone spends a lot more time trying to communicate stuff than it really is necessary. Beyond that, even like you have the visibility piece, which is DevOps is super helpful at registering those changes in when pipelines are run. But I think it leaves off a little bit in terms of like the fact that we have a code diff there is helpful for some people, but lots of people would look at that who might be in ServiceNow looking at changes, and they would say, "I don't really know what this change is, right? I don't really know what it does." And you can go one of two ways with that. You can push that to the developers and say, you have to fill out like a ton of detail in all your commits and all your PRs, and explain every little thing you're doing in a way that someone who's not as technical or whose job is not engineering would understand. Or we can just use generative AI like what we did here, where we get the explanation back and we put in the change. So I think there's a lot of value here in terms of like ServiceNow products, and then like how can we build on those even more useful pieces for specific situations, like ChatOps, like keeping developers and tools that they're used to using, and only exchanging the actual data that we need to have. So that's kind of the story that we are telling here. And I think as it continues to resonate with a lot of the customers that we work with, we're implementing this in a lot of situations, and customers are seeing really cool value out of this. I think we've had a few customers who talked to Knowledge in prior years about great experiences they had with implementations of solutions along these lines or using pieces of this. And so this end-to-end story can really make a big difference for an organization.
Hey, just to jump in, there's one question in the Q&A around the site reliability management and whether or not tracking error budget and error rate are kind of part of this process. Is that something you guys are thinking about?
Yeah, we've had some discussions about site reliability management and that kind of newly launched version of all of that was done in March. I think there are definitely some connection points. A lot of the customers that we work with, I would say it's not the first thing that's on their mind usually. So they're usually trying to figure out a lot of other things to solve before they get to that point necessarily. But I think there's definitely some tie-ins there. And I would say that we do have some of those things installed here, and we've used some of them in other situations. We just, it's more of a thing where this demo, it already gets to a certain point. We're not really highlighting a lot of that. But I think that there's a lot of value for that when the customer kind of maturity and their process like gets a good fit. I think that's definitely a good option.
How would you expect this setup to respond if immediately after somebody did that commit, somebody else on their team looked over their shoulder and was like, "What are you doing? You just uncommented an infinite loop," and they immediately kind of go back in there and fix it on the Git side. How would you envision this kind of catching up? Would it leave like a dangling alert, or would it clear automatically but never really fill in the blanks as to how it happened in the first place, or something in the middle where it would kind of, if somebody looked on the ServiceNow side, they could see, oh, there was a change and then things got crowbarred and then there was another change and now they're fine?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that because of the history that we can easily see on the CIs, this is part of why CIs are a core piece of this. We don't leave CIs completely behind,
Yep.
and even in cloud native scenarios, there are ways to make CIs useful without getting to a point where it's just unmanageable.
Yep.
With very kind of ephemeral stuff. And so that's where I think that comes in. But what I would expect to happen probably in that situation is that most of the alerts in the incident would probably never get created, because if they caught it that fast, in all likelihood, the monitoring tools would have never picked it up. But even if they did, most monitoring tools that we deal with have kind of a close status that they send, or like a clear status. And event management picks that up and clears the alerts, and that would resolve the incident. So I think in that sense, it would probably auto close if the monitoring tools even caught the issue before it was fixed.
Right.
Yep. So here's another good one. Mahesh asked around how are the microservices mapped? Do you want to dive into those service maps again?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So basically, the way that this is done in the YAML, you have a few different kind of objects that you can tie this to. The easiest way to see this is in the C mappings. And so you can see when you set up the plugin, there's some default ones that are provided, which are based on just kind of like the most common use cases that we see. And you can set up more. And that's what I was mentioning. Somebody mentioned something about using SDLC components. We do have a default one that we do here. And so that's what we're actually creating for the microservice object type. And the application services that sit under those are tag-based application services. And then we're also using business applications. Those are the top CSDM, or the top CMDB classes that we're using. You can set up more mappings here for whatever other classes you might want to use. And then based on that reference in the YAML, that's how we're creating those objects. And you can kind of see, like, if we open one of these, let's look at the application service one. So you can see the support group is getting mapped from support group, the environment is getting mapped from environment, and the tags are getting set into the metadata field of the target class. So this is how you can build it. You can build it so you have like lookups and everything like that. That's essentially like more about what that looks like. And you can extend that as well to meet other use cases.
Yeah. And again, everybody take a drink. We're going to talk about that a lot at Knowledge Live. Or I mean, it appears live at Knowledge. But Mahesh, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Perfect. Excellent. So
Matt,
we got
you
about.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
Matt, you also mentioned that you've used the observability piece also in this.
Yes.
Or this, can you
Yes.
highlight that?
A bunch of those alerts were from ServiceNow Cloud Observability. We piped all of the OpenTelemetry data, because everything we're looking at here is instrumented with OpenTelemetry. So we piped all those traces, logs, and metrics into ServiceNow Cloud Observability. And that's what I showed when I opened up the HLA alert into Cloud Observability on the log page, and had it automatically built the search for us with that button. That's something where you can use it like that for log search. You can also I think I showed opening one of the alerts into the alert itself in ServiceNow Cloud Observability, so you can see the performance. Once you have data in SCO, as we call it, you can set up dashboards, you can set up alert policies and everything like that. And then what we do is we route those alerts to event management so that they're consumed as part of the event data. And in this case, like we showed, we had 6 alerts. 3 of them were from SCO, 1 from HLA, and then we had like some Zabbix and Selenium stuff mixed in there too. And that leads to this alert group that allows us to deal with that as a whole, rather than 6, like, if we were integrating an incident or something, we have 6 different incidents.
Is the APM component of the observability is mandatory in this whole exercise, or can we do it with the visibility piece of the observability and the service graph connector of the observability?
Yeah, I think for the outcomes that we're showing here, we're kind of showing an ideal state of being able to pull all these pieces together. It's definitely a puzzle that you can put together some pieces at a time and get to some kind of value. The service graph connector. So I think what you're saying is, what if we have open telemetry data, but we're not completely set up for APM yet? Can we still
That is
do the
correct.
service graph connector? The answer is
Yeah.
yes, you can. Yeah, because it's not based on anything that you've configured in I wanted to say Lightstep in ServiceNow Cloud Observability. Nothing that's configured there has anything to do with how does the service map get built. It's a little bit of magic that happens behind the scenes where it basically condenses those traces into service dependencies that are detected. And then it has like a backend API that pulls out those service dependencies and brings them in through iHub ETL. So it's kind of a service graph connector approach that you see. Like there's a Dynatrace connector that does a similar thing.
Thank you, Matt.
You guys asked enough questions. I think I've run out. Thank you.
Great. And I apologize. Normally, Will and I can hang around for 30 minutes or so afterwards, but today I do have a hard stop. So while we're here, what any other questions that we have before we wrap?
Q&A is clear. Guess we wore
Just
them
good to
all
see
out.
Matt again.
Who said that? I didn't see.
That was
Michael Hunt.
Oh, Michael Hunt. It's good to see you, man.
How you doing?
Good, man.
Good job.
Yeah, I see a lot of familiar faces on here. Thanks for taking some time to hang out with us.
Yeah.
Great demo for sure. Matt, you highlighted that in the knowledge conference, you're also showing the demo around Kubernetes as well with a similar approach, or this is also has the Kubernetes.
This is all Kubernetes under the covers.
Okay.
The demo that I think we're going to do a few different sessions at Knowledge. I'm not personally doing any sessions at Knowledge, but we have some others on our team who are doing some sessions at Knowledge. But come by and check us out at the booth, and you definitely check out the sessions. If I don't know if there's still spaces and things, but we're happy to talk through any of it ad hoc as well. So looking forward to seeing everybody.
And then another question came in on the Q&A. Is there data validation on the YAML side before or after that
Yes.
data is sent to the ServiceNow?
Yes, and the way that we usually set this up for customers is we'll have like a Slack channel that's for feedback. And then if you do something that didn't work, or if like something's configured in a way that we didn't expect, it'll spit that error and spit successes too, but it'll spit out the error into the Slack channel and explain what went wrong. So we definitely do validation along the way. And we have several checks that happen in the process of mapping those into CMDB.
Awesome.
Nice.
I gotta tell you, you guys are always the best audience, right? Everybody comes with questions and brings good, solid, pointed, intelligent, interesting questions. So thank you very much. I love it.
Yes, thank you guys. It's always great to get to talk to this crew, and looking forward to seeing everybody soon.
Perfect. So I think with that, we'll wrap the recording. And then we can open it up for other questions and conversation.